Today I'm going to de-stash some crochet cotton and turn it into some beautiful placemats. Let's get started. Hi everyone, it's Steph and welcome to another video. This is a previous set of crochet cotton placemats I called them the ocean placemats, and I love them. They've been used almost constantly in the last year and a half, but they're just a little bit too tall. So I want to make them the same again, like the same width, but not quite as tall, so that they sit a little bit better on the table. This is the table runner that I made previously with crochet cotton, but I don't have enough of all of these colours to do placemats the same, but I do want to do placemats that's coordinated, or at least goes together in a general way. So there's a little bit of green in the table runner, so what I've done is pulled out all the whites and the creams and also the greens, so that it should match fairly well, especially with the same melon coloured mop cotton as the weft. By the way, the mop cotton I think is 8/8 if you were wondering. But I'm not going to put any of the red in at all, even though I do have some red left over, as I think this will look a little bit too Christmassy, which is not what I want for this set. So armed with the information of how big I wanted my placemat to be, I started to work everything out. I didn't realise until the very end that I had made one crucial error. However, I will show you here where I made the error so that you don't make the same one. So I had worked out that I wanted the width in the reed to be 36 centimetres, which is 30 centimetres finished, allowing for 6 centimetres in shrinkage, which was fine. But then the length of each placemat, so when you sit down at the table, how far either side of your plate is going to show, the finished length of it, I was happy with 42.5 centimetres including fringe, but I should have added on at least 10% for shrinkage, and I did not. So that is my mistake. I added on a little bit extra for the fringe on each end, so worked it out to be 42 centimetres weaving and then an extra 3 centimetres for fringes. But I should have worked it out to be at least 52 centimetres for each placemat. But anyway, so if you were going to do it yourself, I would work it out to be 52 centimetres per placemat, and this would end up being 4.6 metres or 5 yards in the length of your warp. Now, because this is a really long warp of about 4 metres, I'm going to use my warping board for this, and I'm going to do the hybrid warping technique. If you want to know more about this technique, I will link the video I did about a year and a half ago in the description. I'll also be using my DIY tension device, and I'll link that video in the description for you as well if you want to go and check these out. So I've measured out 4 meters with some scrap yarn for my leader, and then once I've got 4 meters, I just pop a little loop at one end of the leader, and that way I can work out what pattern I'm going to use on the warping board that will give me the length that I need for the warp. So basically I just hook the little loop that you made on one end, and then follow the yarn side to side until you get the length that you need, where the end of your leader should be roughly where you're going to start warping, and I'll show you what that looks like. So here you can see where the one end of the leader is perfectly touching the apron rod where I'm going to start warping, and that means that the length of my warp will be exactly what I need. I popped the first colour, which is the dark green, into a bowl and then popped it on the floor because my yarn holder is no good for crochet cotton, and then got started warping up. I'm warping in both holes and slots, so that means pulling one loop through each hole and through each slot. I counted 4 in for where I did the placemats, and that's going to give me the width that I want in the reed. I also realised after doing the textile ties that I'd cut off the ties that I used to tie up the heddle to the apron rod when I'm warping, so I got those quickly redone as well. This really helps with tension as you're warping up. Then I got stuck into warping. I copied whatever I did on one side to the other side, and that just gives the placemat symmetry. I know that there is probably a way of making it random and looking good, but I've just never been able to pull that off. So I just copy whatever I do on one side to the other side, and then it always just looks better. The hybrid warping technique just makes this so much easier to handle. Mostly I did all of the dark greens with a little bit of light green, some yellows, as well as some of the whites and the creams, and I'm really loving this color combination as they're coming through here. I would really like to do a placemat in these colors as well, or maybe just in a dark green by itself, because I just think it's so pretty. Finally, I finished all of the warping and tied off that last warp string. Warping through the slots and the holes always takes a lot longer, but it's always worth it when you come to threading, because there actually isn't any threading, which is excellent. So I'm just doing a quick check to make sure that I haven't missed any slots or any holes, because that's best fixed here and now. Then I'm just going to get set up and ready to do my DIY tension device. First, I place the arms on top of the loom and just secure them with some rubber bands on each end, and that just stops them from moving around until I've got everything sorted. Then with the dowels, I pop one underneath, one on top, one underneath and one on top, and this is all behind the heddle. Then I secure the dowels to the arms that I've just put down by popping the rubber bands on the dowels and taking them underneath the arms and then over and then back on the other end of the dowels. It's really hard to describe, so I would really recommend you have a look at the video that I made. Anyway, that secures all of the dowels in place and make sure that when you wind on, everything is kept at a nice even tension. Then to secure the arms to the heddle, I just use a rubber band for that, and that keeps everything nice and steady whilst I'm winding on. Then I'm just covering up those pegs, the Texole pegs that I used. These pegs are starting to really annoy me, so I am going to actually have a look at putting one of those really skinny dowels in. I can't remember, but one of you, I think, let me know that that was an option, so I'll probably end up doing that very soon because the pegs just stick out too much. Anyway, I left most of the weaving on the actual warping board and just undid a little bit as I went, just to try this method to see how it worked, and it worked out fine. You can also take all of the weaving off the warping board and then secure it with a crochet chain. That also works really well. But this is how beautiful and neat everything gets wound straight onto your back beam. It is amazing. The front can get a little bit tangled and a little bit bunched up, so just don't pull through it. Just tease it out a little bit every so often and keep winding on until you're all done. When I've finished winding on, I can then dismantle the DIY tension device and put my warping board away, because both of these things have done their job. And I can get started popping the loom on my stand and then lashing on and spreading my warp ready to weave. Now there is no threading, as I've already warped through all of the holes and all of the slots. So now I'm just gathering groups of 8 doubled threads and popping a knot down the bottom. I'm actually just trimming them all so that they're all roughly the same length as well. That just makes things a little bit easier when spreading the warp. One thing that I had forgotten is that crochet cotton does tend to tangle and twist with the other threads just a little bit more than other yarns, but I just went ahead and grouped and knotted all of the groups and making sure that all the knots are roughly in the same place. Once that was done, I grabbed some scrap yarn that was about 6 lengths of the loom. I wound half of it up into a yarn butterfly just to make it a little bit easier to work with, and then tied the other end to the apron rod. I then divided each bundle in half, dropped the scrap yarn through the top, went around the bottom of the apron rod, and then continued that until all of the bundles were tied onto the apron rod. I went through and tightened just a little bit as I went. Once I had everything lashed on, I went through and tightened everything again, and then to check that the tension was even, I just drummed the warp behind the heddle, and that let me know if there were any slack areas that I needed to fix. Once I was happy, I tied the other end of the scrap yarn onto the apron rod, and I was ready to spread my warp. To spread the warp, I grab some scrap yarn and then I throw 3 picks without beating in between. So throw a pick, chain shed, throw a pick, chain shed, throw a pick. Then I will beat those 3 picks down towards the knots, making sure that I've got a nice straight line down the bottom. I then repeat and throw another 3 picks without beating, and then beat those 3 picks down, and then that's all I need to do to spread my warp. Then I'm ready to get started. So for each of the placemats, I'm doing hem stitching and a fringe. So for the hem stitching, I'm using white crochet cotton at about 6 times the width of the project. And then the first pick is that crochet cotton. Then I've gone the next pick with the melon coloured 8/8 mop cotton. So what I'm doing is using that white cotton to do the hem stitching, so I don't have to use the really thick 8/8 cotton for the hem stitching, but also so it sticks out. And the reason that I want it to stick out is for the 6 of the 8 placemats, I'm doing a different kind of hem stitching for each one. And the reason is I wanted to just see what they all look like. I usually just do the very, very simple 2x2 hem stitch, and I've done that for years, but I know there's lots of other different kinds that you can do. So what I've done is a different one on each one, and also it doesn't really matter for me what it looks like because these placemats are just ones that I'm going to use at home. They're not being given away to anyone or being given as gifts. So that's what I have done. All of those hem stitchings I have videoed close up, and that will be a video that will come out next week showing you 6 different kinds of hem stitching. So here I'm just covering the knots and those textile pegs with cardboard rolls. I'm really looking forward to getting rid of those pegs because they really are annoying me. But anyway, I'm really enjoying the colour that's coming out using this mop cotton and the greens. It's really calming the brightness of the colours down, but giving it a real life of its own, and it's so pretty. Once I've done one placemat, what I do is put in a piece of cardboard and then change sheds, and then pop in another piece of cardboard, change sheds, and then start the whole process again for the second one. And that just means that it's a lot easier for me to do the hem stitching, and also each of the fringes will be roughly the same length when I cut them all apart. Once I've woven 1 inch or 2 of the second placemat, I remove the 2 cardboard pieces because they've done their job, and then I can use them for spacing between the next 2 placemats and so on. So that just makes things a lot easier. As always, to measure each placemat so I know when to stop weaving and hem stitch, I just use a flexible measuring tape and a quilting clip, and I just clip the measuring tape on the side, and then I can just move the clip up until I've gotten to the end of where I want to stop. Then I can remove the measuring tape, hem stitch, pop my cardboard pieces in to space to the next placemat, weave a couple of inches, remove the cardboard, hem stitch, reattach the measuring tape, and away I go, and so on and so forth until we get to the end. When I've gotten to the end and I've done my 8 placemats, I just use the same cardboard width to measure to cut the weaving off the loom, and that just makes things just a little bit easier, and I do the same at the beginning of the weave as well. Once it was cut from the loom, I bunged this straight into my washing machine with a little bit of dish soap just to get rid of any machine oils from the manufacture of the yarn. Then straight through the dryer and then out, and here they are. I'm just trimming off all of the tails, but here you can see how much they've shrunk, and also that they're not really wide enough or long enough. But anyway, I've just measured up with a self-healing mat underneath, and then I'll use my rotary cutter to cut them apart, and I just eyeballed it to get it roughly even. I love how the melon colour mop yarn has just warmed up the green instead of it being really cool colours. It's very, very pretty. And they'll be really hard wearing. As always, thank you so much for watching and for supporting my channel. If you wish to support me, please like this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Super thanks are also available. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you in the next one.